Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper analysis from the UPSC perspective. Today we have taken up important articles from the Hindu newspaper. Topics which we are going to discuss are displayed on your screen. Let's begin the discussion.
Now let's start our discussion with our first article which appeared on page number 6 in the Hindu newspaper. This article delves into the need for reforms in higher education so that it can align the system with the United Nations SDGs. Now the author praises National Education Policy 2020 as a step in the right direction to achieve SDG 4, which pertains to access to quality education. Author argues that reforms in higher education and its impact is not limited to SDG 4 only, but it will have a spillover impact on various SDGs. Now understand this with the following observation. According to the data from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, people with higher education degree are more employable and earn an average of 54% more than those who only have completed senior secondary education. So what it depicts that a university inclusive education better protects people against poverty, that is SDG 1, prevents them from hunger, that is SDG 2, supports them for good health and well-being, that is SDG 3, promotes gender equality, that is SDG 5, provides them decent work, which in turn drives economic growth, that is SDG 8, and reduces inequalities, that is SDG 10. So here we can see a spillover impact on various SDGs. Now as this article revolves around education, which is very important theme under GS paper 2. Also, UPSC has been asking questions based on the same. For example, in year 2020, they have asked questions based on National Education Policy 2020. In the same year, they asked about digital initiatives, which contributed to the functioning of education system in the country. In year 2016, they asked about reforms advocated by Professor Amartya Sen in the realms of primary education and primary healthcare. And in year 2015, they have asked questions based on entry of foreign educational institution which can improve the quality of higher and technical education in the country. So with this, you can make it out that how important this particular theme is. So in this discussion, we will first briefly look at some issues pertaining to higher education, and then we will cover the facets of the education system in India. Well, because some issues are specifically related to higher education, others are common to the entire education system. So let's start with the issues of higher education. The first in this is gap between the supply and the demand. Now, in higher education, India has gross enrollment ratio, that is GER, of 28.06%, which is quite lower than the world average. And what is that? 36.7%, and much lower than most of the developed countries. So the first issue is gap between supply and demand. Second is lack of quality research work. Now, due to the limited focus on research and internationalization, very few Indian higher education institutes are globally recognized. According to data from various global resources, India accounts for only around 4% of global research output, and spending on R&D is 0.7% of GDP. And you know what? China's share is 2.5% of GDP, and what we have 0.7. So with this, we can make that there is a lack of quality research. First, less spending. Second, limited focus on research and internationalization. Then another issue of higher education is shortage of faculty and high student-faculty ratio. Now, in most of the state and central universities, more than 30% of faculty positions are lying vacant. The Indian higher education system has a student-teacher ratio of 29, while the same for the United States was 12.35, and for Brazil it is 19.4. Here you can see the difference what India is having and what developed nations are having, like US. Another interesting fact which represents shortage of faculty is provided by Ministry of Education. And according to it, 40% of posts vacant in 23 IITs. Next issue is no accountability. Why? Because there is no provision of audit of teachers' performance in most of the institutions. So no audit means no accountability. Next issue is gender disparity. Now women's enrollment in certain fields like science, technology, engineering and mathematics remain significantly lower compared to men. And reason for this could be socio-cultural factors like safety concerns, limited support system. All these contribute to gender disparity. Another important challenge is quality disparities. Now, there is a significant disparity in the quality of education between top tier institutions and lower ranked colleges. While premier institutions like IIMs, IITs, All India Institute of Medical Sciences offer world class education, but many other institutions struggle to maintain the same standards. So, what will happen? This will lead to the uneven learning outcomes and job prospects for students. So, these are the important issues of higher education. Now, having seen the issues, let's see few futuristic suggestions in this regard. First is ensure quality education. For this, what we have to do? We have to implement rigorous accreditation process to ensure quality standards in universities and colleges. Then, encourage universities to seek international accreditation to boost global recognition. And for this, the best example is Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, who achieved top position in international rankings, enhancing its reputation. Another suggestion is to strengthen R&D ecosystem. And how we can do this? By promoting collaboration. Now, how collaboration will help? Collaboration between academia and industry will facilitate technology transfer and commercialization of research. For instance, IITs have collaborated with various industries to develop innovative solutions and products. So, the first suggestion is collaboration. Another is to establish research centers of excellence. So, now how these research centers of excellence will boost higher education? First, these centers in specialized fields attract talented researchers and scholars. And the one such example is Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, which is renowned for its contributions to physics and mathematics. So by collaborations and by establishing research centers, we can strengthen our R&D ecosystem. Another suggestion is industrial cooperation. And for this, what we can do? Development of curriculum by organizing expert lectures, then promoting internships, live projects, career counseling, and placements. With all these, we can boost our industrial cooperation. Now, the last but not the least is international collaboration. And how we can do? By facilitating partnership between Indian universities and reputed international institutions to foster exchange programs, joint research projects, and faculty-student exchanges. These collaborations can enhance the global reputation of Indian institutions and provide students with international exposure, which will promote the recruitment of international faculty members to diversify academic environment and bring in diverse perspective. We can also establish international campuses or satellite centers of Indian universities abroad to attract international students and leverage global resources. So, by doing all these, we can enhance our international collaboration, which is very much needed to give a boost to our higher education. So, all these are futuristic solutions to solve issues related to higher education. Now, having seen issues of higher education and way forward, now let's move to the main part of our discussion, that is issues related to education system in India. So the first issue is expenditure on education. The improvement of India's educational system requires more funding. According to Economic Survey 2022 and 23, the budgetary allocation for education as a percentage of total expenditure has dropped over the past 7 years from 10.4% to 9.5%. Now, as you know, National Education Policy 2020 calls for public investment on education to 6% of GDP. And India's education budget has never touched this number yet. As per Economic Survey 21 to 22, expenditure on education as a percentage of GDP was 2.8% between 2019 to 20, 3.1% between 20 to 21, 3.1% between 21 to 22. So with this you can make it out that India's education budget has never touched this number yet. That is 6% of GDP. Now second problem is infrastructure facilities. Now poor building conditions such as leaking toilets, smelly cafeterias, broken furniture, classrooms that are too hot or cold, moldy walls, and plaster falling off ceilings make students feel negatively about their school norms and expectations. And this negative perception of the school's social climate contributes to high absenteeism, and in turn, that contributes to low test scores and poor academic achievement. And this problem is reason for another issue, that is high dropout rate. Now, what is dropout rate? It is measured in terms of percentage of students who leave school before completing their level or grade. It is a critical indicator of the effectiveness of the education system. This you can understand with the help of fact that according to UDISE Plus 2021 to 22, data reveals that the overall dropout rate in school in India is 1.5%, which is lower than the previous year rate of 1.8%. However, this rate is still a concern, especially in certain states. Another problem is student-teacher ratio. Now, pupil-teacher ratio at different levels of education show availability of adequate number of teachers for teaching children enrolled at different grades. So, increase in number of teachers in schools is contributing to focused delivery of education. The country has witnessed substantial reduction in pupil-teacher ratio over the last one decade. According to Ministry of Education, in primary schools, the pupil-teacher ratio was at 43 in 2010 to 11, and this has come down to 26.3% in 20 to 21. While in upper primary school, the pupil-teacher ratio has reduced from 33 in year 10 to 11 to 18.9 between 2020 to 21. Next challenge is learning gap. Now, students in all grades encountered learning gaps or learning losses despite an immediate switch to online schooling during COVID-19 pandemic. Less than 50% of kids have been able to handle studying during the past 2 years, according to Learning Loss Education Recovery Loss 2022 report by Smile Foundation. And according to this report, school closures hindered students from developing social skills. Now, the next issue is poor quality education. Now, poor quality education is leading to poor learning outcomes in India, ultimately pushing children out of education system and leaving them vulnerable to child labor, abuse and violence. Many classrooms continue to be characterized by teacher-centered rote learning, corporal punishment and discrimination. Another challenge is neglecting practical knowledge. Now, educational institutions in India often neglect the importance of practical experiences. Studies are mostly focused on providing students with theoretical knowledge, which affects their ability to use the knowledge they gain in the right way. So these are important issues in education system in India. Now, having seen the issues in Indian education system, let's see few suggestions. The first in this is quality of education. It is necessary to take measures to uniformly raise the standard of education in India so that everyone has access to fair and impartial information and growth possibility. Second suggestion is to fill vacancies. Government must make sure that vacancies are filled by giving institution more autonomy. The next suggestion is to upgrade curriculum. The curriculum was to be upgraded to meet the evolving and changing needs of the students. So as we have already discussed about learning loss, so learning loss recovery programs have to be included within the curricula. Some schools even incorporate health curriculum to make health education an important part of formal learning. Second suggestion is upskilling and reskilling of teachers. By understanding the pace of advancement in technology and the emergence of new age pedagogy, upskilling and reskilling are going to be the norm even in the years ahead. And in this regard, NCERT has developed performance indicators for elementary school teachers. And this is a framework for assessing teacher performance and providing constructive feedback for further improvement. Another suggestion is to reduce dropout, and this can be achieved by multiple coordinated efforts, for example, midday meal scheme and Digital India. Next suggestion is to promote universal access to primary education. And to achieve this, we have Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which was launched in year 2021. It focuses on improving school access, enrollment, and retention by providing infrastructure, teacher training, and other support. Another suggestion is to promote universal access to secondary education. And to achieve this, we have RMSA, that is Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan. This program focuses on improving infrastructure, teacher training, and quality of education in secondary schools. Then next is public-private partnership model. This model should be taken into consideration because the PPPs that are well designed can produce innovative school system in India. Then next is assess learning achievement of children. And in this regard, national surveys are carried out by NCERT to assess learning achievement of children in classes 3rd, 5th, 8th and 10th. Also, Government of India has decided to participate in program for international students assessment, that is PISA, to be conducted by the OECD. Next suggestion is evaluation of schools. In order to objectively evaluate the performance of the school education system in the state, Ministry of Human Resource Development has designed 70 indicators based metrics to grade the states or UTs. Another initiative in this regard is Shala Siddhi, and it is a school standards and evaluation framework developed by National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, which enables the school to self-evaluate based on 7 key domains. And the last suggestion is proper implementation of National Education Policy 2020. This is the third in the series of national education policies. NEP 2020 seeks to address the entire education system in the country from preschool to doctoral studies and from professional degrees to vocational training. Now let's quickly understand the recommendations for school education in NEP 2020. It focuses on easier board exam, reduction in the syllabus to retain core essential, and focuses on experimental learning and critical thinking. Another important feature is that in a significant shift from 1986 policy, which pushed for 10 plus 2 structure of school education, this NEP proposes 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 design corresponding to the age groups. Now this is for 3 to 8 years and this is known as foundational stage. This one is for 8 to 11 years and this is known as preparatory stage. This is for 11 to 14 years and this is known as middle stage, and this one is for secondary stage, that is between 14 to 18 years. Now this brings early childhood education, also known as preschool education for children of 3 to 5 years under formal schooling. Another important feature is it also proposes the extension of right to education to all children up to age of 18 years. Also, a new school curriculum will be introduced in the schools of a new national curricular framework for education, that is NCFSE, which will be undertaken by the NCERT. Last but not the least, one of the most important recommendations is that the policy proposes that students until class 5 should be taught in their mother language or regional language. Now, recommendations in NEP have different timelines as the policy is made for next 20 years. Therefore, the implementation of NEP is being carried out in a phased manner. Indian education system has already passed through many success and failures. National Education Policy 2020 may bring watershed changes in educational landscape of India. Having said that, it all depends on its implementation and coordinate efforts by the various stakeholders. Inclusive and quality education was mentioned in SDG Goal 4, and it should be target for Indian education system as it is indispensable component to harness the potential of demographic dividend. Now our next discussion is based on this news article which appeared on page number 19 in the Indian Express. Context is that in response to challenges against the centre's use of money bill route to pass significant legislations, Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud has announced the formation of 7-judge bench. Now what is money bill? Money bill as defined by Article 110 of the Constitution encompass provisions related to taxation, borrowing of money, fund custody, appropriation, expenditure declarations, and much more. So, money bills hold a unique status in India's parliamentary process with special procedure for their passage. And you should know that only the Lok Sabha can introduce money bill, which require President's recommendation and the Speaker's certification. And what Rajya Sabha can do? Rajya Sabha can offer recommendations but cannot amend or reject them. This distinction between money bills and ordinary bills, along with Speaker's crucial role, has been a subject of judicial review, with the Supreme Court providing guidelines on when and how Speaker's decision can be challenged, ensuring the constitutional checks and balances are upheld. So in this regard, we'll discuss first what is money bill, then we'll see distinction between money bill and ordinary bill, then we'll talk about role of speaker with respect to money bill, and then we'll conclude our answer with the President of the Supreme Court. Now as this article talk about money bill, and money bill is quite important in India's parliamentary process, which is important theme under GS paper 2. Also, UPSC has asked question based on money bill in year 2018. And question says regarding money bill, which of the following statement is not correct? And we'll discuss answer of this PYQ in end of our discussion. So first let's start with money bill. Article 110 of the Constitution deals with the definition of money bills. It states that a bill is deemed to be a money bill if it contains only provisions dealing with all or any of the following matters. The first is imposition, abolition, remission, alteration or regulation of any tax. Now this refers to the authority of the government to establish, remove, modify or regulate taxes. Now taxes can include income tax, sales tax, etc. So government can make decisions about tax rates, exemptions and rules. Second is regulation of the borrowing of money by the union government. Now this pertains to the rules and procedures governing how the central government can borrow money. It includes decisions about issuing government bonds, securing loans, and managing the national debt. Third is the custody of the Consolidated Fund of India or the Contingency Fund of India, the payment of monies into or the withdrawal of money from any such fund. Now, this refers to the responsibility for managing and safeguarding the funds of the Indian government. The Consolidated Fund holds revenues received by the government, while contingency is used for unforeseen expenditures. And the government decides how money is deposited into these funds, how it is withdrawn for various expenses. The next is appropriation of money out of Consolidated Fund of India. Now this involves the allocation of funds for specific purposes. In this, government decides how much money is allocated for various government programs, departments and expenditures from Consolidated Fund of India. The next is declaration of any expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India or increasing the amount of any such expenditures. Now, certain expenditures such as charged expenditures are not subject to regular parliamentary approval and are automatically charged to the Consolidated Fund. Any change or declaration regarding such expenditures must be made through appropriate legal procedures. The next is the receipt of money on account of Consolidated Fund of India or public account of India or custody or issue of such money or audit of the account of the union or state. This involves management and audit of government accounts. It includes collection of revenue, management of public account, auditing of government finances to ensure transparency and accountability. And last, any matter incidental to any of the matters specified above. This encompasses any related or ancillary matters that are necessary to implement the financial powers and responsibilities described above. So, a bill is deemed to be money bill if it contains only provisions dealing with all or any of the following matters. However, a bill is not to be deemed to be a money bill by reason only that it provides for. So, the first is imposition of fines or other pecuniary penalties. Now, what does it mean? That local authorities in India have the authority to impose fines or monetary penalties on individuals, businesses, or organizations for various reasons. For example, including violation of local laws, bylaws, or regulations. The best example is municipal corporation may impose fines for illegal construction, improper waste disposal, or traffic violation within its jurisdiction. Another one is demand or payment of fees for licenses or fees for services rendered. Now, local authorities can require individuals or businesses to pay fees for obtaining licenses, permits, or availing specific services provided by the local government. This includes fee for license to operate businesses, permits for construction, and charges for services like waste collection, water supply, or sanitation services. Third one is imposition, abolition, remission, alteration, or regulation of any tax by any local authority or body for local purposes. Now, what does it mean? That local authorities have the power to impose, abolish, adjust, or regulate taxes within their jurisdiction for local purposes. These taxes are typically used to fund local infrastructure development, public services, and community projects. To substantiate this is property taxes, local sales taxes, entertainment taxes, which are collected by local government to finance local initiatives. So these provisions reflect the principles of fiscal decentralization in India. So a bill is not deemed to be a money bill by reason only that it provides for. So now as we know what is money bill, so let's see what is the procedure for passing of money bill in Parliament. Now the Constitution lays down a special procedure for the passing of money bills in the Parliament. A money bill can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, and that too on the recommendation of the President. And every such bill is considered to be a government bill and can be introduced only by minister. So here we get to know two important facts with respect to money bill. First one is it can be introduced only in Lok Sabha, that too on the recommendation of President, and that too only by a minister. Further, with respect to Rajya Sabha cannot reject or amend a money bill. What it can do, it can only make the recommendations. It must return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days, whether with or without recommendations. The Lok Sabha can either accept or reject all or any of the recommendation of the Rajya Sabha. So if the Lok Sabha accept any recommendation, the bill is then deemed to have been passed by both the houses in the modified form. But if the Lok Sabha does not accept any recommendation, then the bill is then deemed to have passed by both the houses in the form original passed by Lok Sabha without any change. Further, if Rajya Sabha does not return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days, the bill is deemed to have passed by both the houses in the form originally passed by Lok Sabha. So here you can see that Lok Sabha has more powers than Rajya Sabha with regard to money bill. On the other hand, both the houses have equal powers with respect to ordinary bill. Then finally, when a money bill is presented to the President, now what President can do? He may either give his assent to the bill or withhold his assent to the bill. But what he cannot do? He cannot return the bill for reconsideration of the houses. So either he can give his assent or withhold, but cannot return. Normally, The President gives his assent to a bill as it is introduced in the Parliament with prior permission. This we have seen here. So this all entailed procedure for passing of money bill at Parliament. Now, having seen what is money bill, what is the procedure for passing of money bill, now let's see difference between money bill and ordinary bill. Now, the first criteria to differentiate between money bill and ordinary bill is who can introduce. As we have seen just now that it can be introduced in Lok Sabha only and not in Rajya Sabha. But with respect to ordinary bill, either house can introduce ordinary bill in Parliament. Second criteria is who can introduce. In money bill, we have seen that only minister can introduce money bill in Lok Sabha. But with respect to ordinary bill, it can be introduced either by minister or by a private member. Third criteria is recommendation of president is mandatory or not. Now we have seen that money bill can be introduced only once it is recommended by president. So here it's mandatory. But here recommendation of president is not required. The next important criteria is amending power of Rajya Sabha. In previous slide we have discussed that money bill can't be amended or rejected by Rajya Sabha. What Rajya Sabha can do? Rajya Sabha should return the bill with or without recommendations which may be rejected or accepted by the Lok Sabha. But with respect to ordinary bill, it can be amended or rejected by Rajya Sabha. So here Rajya Sabha can amend, can reject. The next criteria is time limit for holding the bill. Money bill can be detained by Rajya Sabha for a maximum of 14 days only. But here Rajya Sabha can detain it for a maximum of 6 months. The next criteria is certification or approval. Money bill requires certification of Lok Sabha Speaker when transmitted to Rajya Sabha. But with respect to ordinary bill, if it is originated in the Lok Sabha, it does not require approval of Speaker when transmitted to Rajya Sabha. Next is provision of joint setting. If money bill is sent for approval of President, even if it is approved by Lok Sabha only, there is no provision of joint setting of both houses in this regard. So there is no joint setting concept with respect to money bill. But in case of ordinary bill, if it is sent to the President only when it is passed by both the houses of Parliament, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. In case of deadlock between two houses, a joint sitting of both the houses can be called by the President. So no for money bill and yes for ordinary bill. Then next is what if the bill is defeated? If money bill is defeated in the Lok Sabha, then the entire Council of Ministers has to resign. But with respect to ordinary bill, if its defeat in the Lok Sabha may lead to the resignation of the government if it is introduced by a member. Then last is provision of reconsideration. If money bill can be rejected or accepted but can't be returned for reconsideration by the President. Why? Because here we have seen that earlier permission is taken from him. But with respect to ordinary bill, it can be rejected, accepted or returned for reconsideration by the President. So these are the important criteria on which we can differentiate between money bill and ordinary bill. Now let's see role of Speaker with respect to money bill. Now as you know, Speaker plays a powerful role in the matter of money bill. If any question arises whether a bill introduced in the Lok Sabha is a money bill or not, then in such circumstances, the Speaker of Lok Sabha has the authority to declare and certify the bill as money bill before transmitting it to Rajya Sabha. Also, you should know that Speaker is under no obligation to seek advice in this regard from anyone before arriving at any decision, and his decision thereupon is final, which cannot be further challenged. Now, the purpose of certification of money bill is to ensure that the upper house, that is Rajya Sabha, cannot amend it by adding anything which is beyond the provisions of Article 110. So if Speaker does not certify the bill as money bill, then it will be considered just as financial bill only. So this is all about role of speaker with respect to money bill. Now let's see role of higher judiciary in reviewing the speaker's decision. According to Article 122, explicitly bars court from inquiring into the proceedings of Parliament. As the text of Clause 1 suggests that this bar applies to any question on the ground of irregularity of procedure. The Supreme Court has on several occasions opined on the contours of these restrictions. Now let's see what has been the precedent of the Supreme Court. Now, at last, in both the following cases, namely Keshav Singh case and Raja Rampal case, Supreme Court held that Speaker's decision is open to judicial scrutiny on grounds that if an action rests not on mere irregularity but from an illegality or unconstitutionality of procedure. So to conclude, we have seen that actions of speaker are always debated, whether it is matter of disqualification or money bill. Procedures must be established to maintain the political neutrality of the office of speaker. So that's all from this article. Now our first prelim pointer is based on this news article which appeared on page number 1 in the Hindu newspaper. This article is about Nargis Mohammadi, an Iranian activist who won the Nobel Peace Prize 2023 for her efforts towards women's rights and democracy. Now why we have taken this article? Because UPSC has been asking questions based on international awards. Like this question based on Indira Gandhi Prize for Peace, Disarmament and Development for 2014. An answer of this PYQ is option C. So let's talk about Nargis Mohammadi. She has won the Nobel Prize for her fight against the oppression of women in Iran. She is the 19th woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize and second Iranian woman after Shireen Ebadi, who won Nobel Peace Prize in year 2003. So these are the important facts related to Nargis Mohammadi. Now let's see important details related to Nobel Peace Prize. First, it is one of the 5 Nobel Prizes established by Alfred Nobel, along with the prizes in chemistry, physics, physiology or medicine, literature, and the 5th one is Nobel Peace Prize. So you can see there is no Nobel Prize for mathematics. Second important fact is that it is awarded by a committee elected by the Norwegian Parliament. Further, it is awarded for the outstanding contributions to peace. Now what does it mean? That means for arms reduction, international cooperation and organizations contributing to peace and human rights contribution to peace. Further, it was first awarded in year 1901 and first award was equally divided between Jean Henry Dunant and Frederick Passy. Jean Henry got for his humanitarian efforts to help wounded soldiers and create international understanding, and Frederick Passy for his lifelong work for international peace conferences, diplomacy, and arbitration. Then only 2 recipients have won multiple prizes, and those are first one is International Committee of the Red Cross, who has won 3 times, first in year 1917, then 1944 and then 1963. Another one is Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and this has won twice, first in year 1954 and another one in year 1981. So that's all about Nobel Peace Prize. Now let's solve one practice MCQ based on the given information. In this question you have to identify the correct statements, and the first statement is Nobel Peace Prize for the year 2023 is won by Nargis Mohammadi. Now this statement is correct as this article is based on Nargis Mohammadi, who won Nobel Peace Prize for year 2023. Second statement is she is the first Iranian woman to won the Nobel Peace Prize. Now this we have already discussed that she is the second Iranian woman, and who is the first one? Shireen Ebadi. So with this our second statement is incorrect. So our correct answer is option A, that is 1 only. Now let's take our second pre-pointer, which is based on this article which appeared on page number 11 in the Hindu newspaper. Context of this article is that Russia might consider rescinding the ratification of International Pact for Global Nuclear Test Ban, that is Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, that is CTBT. Now, the treaties related to nuclear is important from the prelims perspective, as this question based on Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, that is NPT, came in year 2050. Here you have to identify that which of the above are nuclear weapon states as recognized by the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, commonly known as Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And the options are China, France, India, Israel, Pakistan. And the answer of this PYQ is option A, that is China and France. So now let's see more about CTBT. CTBT is a multilateral treaty to ban nuclear weapons, text explosions and any other nuclear explosions for both civilian and military purposes in all environments. It was adopted by United Nations General Assembly in year 1996 but has not entered into force. Why? Because 8 specific nations have not ratified the treaty. And who are those nations? The first one is China, Egypt, India, Iran, Israel, North Korea, Pakistan, and United States. So these are the 8 nations who have not ratified the treaty. So that is why this treaty is not in force. Further, this treaty establishes a CTBT organization in Vienna to ensure the implementation of its provisions, including those provisions for international verification measures. So these are the important facts related to Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Now our last discussion is based on this news article which appeared on page number 9 in the Hindu newspaper. This article is about Professor Swaminathan, a renowned agricultural scientist who passed away on 28 September at the age of 98. Now contributions of Dr. Swaminathan is important as achievements of Indians in science and technology is important theme under GS paper 3. Also, UPSC has asked question based on contributions of Sir M. Vishveshwarya and Dr. M.S. Swaminathan in the fields of water engineering and agricultural science in year 2019. So first, let's talk about Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. Dr. M.S. Swaminathan was born on 7th August 1925 in Kerala. He was a plant geneticist by training as he made a stellar contribution to the agricultural renaissance in the country and is popularly known as father of the Green Revolution in India. So now let's talk about his contribution. First and the foremost and the very important one is increase in wheat production. He played a pivotal role in introducing semi-dwarf Mexican wheat strains Sonora 64 and Lerma Rojo 64 to Indian fields. He, along with experts at the erstwhile Planning Commission, put together a policy to subsidize fertilizers and power while expanding irrigation to promote dwarf wheat variety. And what this has led to a significant increase in wheat production, thus turning India from being dependent on accumulating food donations to feed its population to being a self-sufficient nation, which is his remarkable achievement. Second is increase in rice production. He introduced the fertilizer responding high yield variety of indica rice from Philippines-based International Rice Research Institute. He pioneered the development of popular basmati rice varieties, culminating in the Pusa basmati variety in year 1989, which was the world's first semi-dwarf high-yielding basmati variety. Next is with respect to sustainable agriculture. He consistently advocated for sustainable agriculture. How? By emphasizing the delicate balance between human advancement and ecological sustainability. He had forewarned farmers in 1968 that not to treat the productivity leap as an evergreen revolution by overusing subsidized agricultural chemicals which would ruin soil health. Next is advocacy for farmers' welfare. As the chairman of the National Commission on Farmers in year 2004, he advocated for fair minimum support prices for crops. This was his recommendation that MSP for crops be at least 50% more than the weighted average cost of production, ensuring fair compensation to farmers. Not only this, he played a pivotal role in developing the protection of plant varieties and Farmers' Rights Act 2001. Next is mainstreaming gender consideration in agriculture. Dr. M.S. Swaminathan advocated the empowerment of farm women in areas of land and water rights, access to technology, credit and insurance, and the ability to market their produce at a remunerative price. It was his effort to empower women farmers helped shape India Mahila Shashaktikaran Yojana program. He was bestowed with the following awards. The first one is S.S. Bhatnagar Award for his contribution to biological sciences in year 1961. Next is Ramon Magsaysay Award for Community Leadership in year 1971. Then Albert Einstein World Science Award in year 1986. Then First World Food Prize in year 1987. Padma Vibhushan in year 1989 and Indira Gandhi Prize for Peace, Disarmament and Development in year 2000 and Mahatma Gandhi Prize of UNESCO in year 2000. And now in last, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan's demise marks the end of era in Indian agriculture. He was the driving force behind the Green Revolution, contributing significantly to food security in India. His legacy as a visionary and agricultural scientist will forever influence our nation's farming practices. Dr. Swaminathan's commitment to sustainable agriculture continues to inspire future generations, and his memory will be cherished as a symbol of hope for a hunger-free and sustainable India. And now that's all for today. Stay tuned for more such updates.